to this episode of Listening Detective TV show, where I'm really lucky to have two fantastic guests, and you might have seen them on the show before because they're friends of mine. And this season is all about confidence. So welcome, Sam and Karen.
Hi, Cheryl.
Hi, thank you.
You might have noticed that they're to do with SWAT books and book mentoring. So today is all about confidence to write and publish your own book. But these tools and resources we're going to be sharing today could be applied to anything. So if you've got to write blogs or letters or anything like that, I'm sure, or even designing Canva stuff, Sam, isn't it? It's about your design stuff. It's all that things you've got to do to run your business. And know that these ladies are going to be full of tips. So we're going to start, as we always do here, where we're just checking out, what does that word mean to you? So Sam, just tell us, for you, confidence is like what? What is confidence for you?
Confidence for me is, there's two parts of it, and I think. The first part is feeling comfortable in your own skin, you know, just being comfortable to say, this is who I am, like it or lump it. To me, that's what confidence is. And in whatever you do, you know, having the confidence to, you know, write a book or start a business or be a public speaker. And it's all about being comfortable with what you're doing, what you're saying, and why you're doing it.
So for you, it's about comfortable, and for other people to like it or lump it. So Karen, is that the same or different for you? Confidence for you is like what?
It's similar, but for me, confidence is about belief. It's about belief in my own abilities. It's about belief in what I do. And it's also about knowledge and knowing my stuff. And that's really how I can define confidence. So it's knowing that I've got something to say, I suppose.
Fabulous. So after you're comfortable in your skin, I'm making an assumption. Are you there right now, Sam? Are you somebody that would class himself as really confident in their own skin? And if you don't like it, what was the word you said? Stuff it. Lump it.
In most things, yes. And this is something I picked up. There was a social media conversation, I think last night in the mentoring business mentoring academy that I think Paul Newton started. That this idea that you can be confident in one aspect of your life and not necessarily confident in another aspect, and that doesn't mean that you're not confident or that you are confident. I think confidences can vary depending on what it is. You know, and I'm very, very confident when it comes to my business and what I do, what I know. I'm getting more confident about speaking in public and, you know, conveying what I know to other people. But I'm still a very, very shy person. So when I enter a room of strangers, my confidence will temporarily just disappear until I, you know, get a feel for the room and the people in it and how I'm reacting to them, how they're reacting to me. So I think it's something that it isn't fixed. It's something that will vary depending on the circumstances, situation, what you're doing, where you are, all of those things.
So where does your confidence come from? So let's say, take that thing where you go into a room and you temporarily lose your confidence. Where does it come back? What happens in between that and it returning?
For me, a lot of it is reminding myself that, you know, I do know what I'm talking about. I do know, you know, what it is that I do. I've, you know, overcome a lot of personal adversity throughout my life in varying degrees, and I've come out stronger the other end of it. So it's just kind of reminding myself that I'm not the timid little mouse that I used to be. I know what I'm doing. If I, you know, get faced with a situation that I don't know, well, I'm gonna say, okay, I don't know, but I'll do my best to figure it out.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is that for you, confidence isn't a permanent thing. It will come and go, and you'll have it in different areas. And if you lose it, you'll have these reminders of what you got through before to remind yourself you're not that person anymore. That's not who you were, sort of like timid mouse, as you called it. So for Karen, the question I was going to ask you is, because you said it's about knowing your stuff and having confidence in it. So where does that confidence come from? Where does that really sort of knowing that you know your stuff come from for you?
I think the confidence for me, gosh, I'm very much like, I could have said exactly what Sam just said a moment ago in terms of, confidence is something I've had to learn. It's something that I've had to develop over the years. So for me, it comes from growth, it comes from learning, it comes from development and my own personal journey. So I was giving a talk this morning actually about my own personal journey and one of my books, which is my story. And confidence for me comes from stretching my comfort zone. From, when I started out in business, I started out because I was knocked, because somebody knocked my confidence, and it kind of made me want to say, you know what, I'm going to blooming well show you. And that's what happened back then. But confidence over the years has come from learning the hard way sometimes, but it's also come from learning what has worked. And I think with a comfort zone, you've got a place where you feel safe, and then you might stretch it a bit, and then the comfort zone gets a bit bigger, so you stretch it a bit further. And that's really, for me, my very first talk I remember giving, I was literally clinging to my notes, and I was, clinging to my PowerPoint, almost wanting it there. Giving the talk I gave this morning, I talked for 15-20 minutes just from the heart, no notes, no PowerPoint, no anything. I wouldn't have been able to do it back then, but now I've just gained that confidence to do it. It doesn't mean that it always goes perfectly, and sometimes I might forget something I want to say, but it's a learn, but also it's just experience and just doing it and showing up.
Yeah. So for you, it's about learnt experience and just doing it and showing up. Is there anything you want to add to that, Sam? Because we were going to sort of do, where do you think your confidence has come from? If you said you're about being a real sort of timid mouse before, what's your journey involved to get from timid mouse to where you are now, where you're just like, if you don't like it, tough?
And it's a lot like what Karen said, that, and a lot of it is experience. That, if anyone's read, my new book, you'll know that I've been through quite a lot. I've been to hell and back, and none of those things have broken me. They might have, knocked me temporarily. They may have been, really, really dark and desperate times, but that wasn't the end of the story. And I was able to bounce back from all of that, be, the stronger, confident person that I know that person back then would have looked up to. So just knowing that I've experienced all of those sorts of things and I've survived them and they've made me stronger, knows that, within certain limitations, I can probably handle pretty much anything that's thrown at me. So yes, if everything were to go absolutely pear-shaped, I know that, eventually I would figure a way through it. And that gives me the confidence to not be scared of stuff that I can't control.
So I think, because I know, Karen, you've jumped out of planes and you've got if you want to get your book up, if you have it handy somewhere, and your Mouse That Roars, I've probably got both your books here somewhere. I'm sure I can go and get them. So we've got From Broken to Brave and The Mouse That Roars. So we'll put those books, I don't know if we put them in the link or not, but we'll get those book links into the YouTube channel so people can have a look at those, because they are your stories. But I'm just thinking about people where I think we all forget that we have got over something. And sometimes when we have a really bad moment in our life, it can feel like it's the first time we've ever had something tough. And I think that what I know about both of you is you're quite reflective people, and so you do reflect on some people are naturally like forward planners and don't ever look back over stuff, so they don't ever really notice that they've managed to achieve things. And I think that's what I'm hearing from both of you, is by reflecting on what you've done before, you can start to identify that you've even if it's not as bad as this thing that's happening to you right now, if you can work out that you solved a problem, got out of a pickle, no, even if it's a minor one, you have a strategy, you have a way of doing it. My question that wasn't on the sheet that we mentioned before, the thing that I'm just going to throw in there, is, did you have any support, or is this like you just did it all on your own? Is this just a one-man band thing that you do to really sort of gain your confidence, or do you have help along the way?
Yeah, and I think we all need cheerleaders in some form or another. I think the varying degree is how much you either want that support network to be visible and overt and on the outside and exterior, or whether it's just the quiet little support that you don't necessarily outwardly talk to them about something, but just knowing that they're there if you need them. And then I've got both in my life. My husband is the sort of person that he doesn't really like talking about problems and a whole lot, especially if they're in the past, because they're in the past. It's just going to aggravate him because there's nothing he can do about it. but knowing that he's there gives me, all the strength that I need. And through the various networking groups and mentor groups that I'm a part of, I also have that exterior support of, okay, I've got a problem, I need to talk it out, or I'm feeling really knocked, I'm not sure if, I can even do what I think I want to do. Help me figure it out. I've got that support system as well. So yeah, I definitely think that building confidence, I'm sure you can do it by yourself, but it's a damn sight harder.
See, I want to come to Karen, but I think that's where my book comes in. I'm not doing a pitch or anything, but for Do Delegate or Ditch, one of the things that to be able to ask for help, you have to have confidence. But the irony is that sometimes you need help to get confidence, and so you can end up in this bind. And so I do think there's a lot you can do. You can pay attention to what works, but there's aspects of us that we just don't see and hear. And particularly if we're in flight, or freeze, and we're in that I call it the cheerleaders, having a party of people that even when you're at your worst in a snotty heat, they can just see the gorgeousness in you, and they remind you of that gorgeousness. They remind you of what you did well, because when you're in a panic mode or trying to survive, your memory recall is pants. You just can't go back and do it. And I think that's the thing to remind anybody who's lost confidence. The brain actually shuts down and limits you to just here, just now, next step, trying to get out of it. And so you lose that ability to project forward what's possible, or to reflect back and remember how great you are. So having people around you who are not in the panic zone with you, by the way, that can actually put your attention on it. And technically, we can't see under our nose, we can't see the back of our heads, and so there's bits of what we say and we do that are completely outside our conscious awareness, and without feedback and without people external to us, we can't physically access that. And I think if anyone takes anything from this viewing, especially these two amazingly confident people here, is that I think when people really lose confidence, usually they've lost some kind of support network. Somebody in their network has gone, and they were a quiet person that didn't really say much, and they didn't realise how just having that person there, knowing they could, when they've gone, it could be a parent that's passed away, it could even be divorced, you might not have been happily married, but at least they were there, there was somebody there. I think we lose parts of our network. Your manager leaves, or somebody goes in your network, and you don't realise that person was your sort of safety net or your confidence booster. And so I think it's really important everyone just be aware of the support network you've got. What about you, Karen, in terms of help and support? What sort of things have you had that's worked for you to sort of maintain confidence along the way?
Gosh, all sorts of things have worked for me. Obviously, there are some things you can do yourself. So one thing I used to do quite religiously, and actually I was reflecting on some over the Christmas break, is sort of journaling. I haven't done much over the last year, which is quite surprising considering the craziness we've been in the world. But I was actually reflecting back from the year before, which is quite interesting because I was there was a few struggles I was going through back then. So it's been interesting reflecting back. So I think this confidence does come from ourselves in as much as we can help ourselves by. So I was talking to a client recently, and she was just maybe doubting herself slightly. So I said, okay, write down 5 reasons why you are the best person to write this book. So again, it was, we can all do that for ourselves. What are your 5 biggest successes? What are the things that have gone well for you this week if you feel like everything's fallen apart? So we can do things for ourselves. But I totally agree that having that support network is key. Having people to bounce ideas off, whether they're going to just listen, like maybe our husbands might listen and not necessarily understand, or whether it's, talking to people who can give you advice, or talking to people who can coach you through it. I think they all have their benefits in so many ways. Sometimes you need to bounce ideas around, or sometimes you need to tap into your own resources and be coached around something. So I think knowing who to turn to when you need help in different areas is absolutely key.
Yeah, and I think that's important. I don't know if your own journeys is, we often know we need help, or we have a sense we're stuck, and I think the hardest bit is when you don't know what kind of help you need. Do you need a quiet listener who's just going to go like that? And it's worse, isn't it? You start chatting and they don't respond in the way you wanted, and then you go, that wasn't helpful. Especially we can blame our partners. They either say nothing, you go, well, that's a lot of help. I think actually I had a similar experience this afternoon. I was looking for my, the keypad to get into your bank account. And I goes, I can't find my thing. And he goes, it'll be here somewhere. I went, not helpful. Not helpful. So sometimes, I think your internet's dropping in and out, Sam. Hopefully you can hear us okay. is that sometimes one of the things I would encourage people is just to get curious when support is offered to you and it boosts your confidence. Be consciously aware of it. Notice what was happening, because then if you know the qualities of the support you need, then you're in a better position when you need to seek out new support or additional support along the way, because often we have it there and we take it for granted, I think, and then it's only when we haven't got access. Let's say something happens in their life and they're really busy, or they've got other things on, so you don't want to bother them, you suddenly lose access to that support. But if you can pay attention to what's working right now, then when you need it later on, you can do it. Which brings us on very beautifully to the fact that you ladies are absolutely awesome. These are the team that are making sure my book does get written this year. That you make sure that people stay confident, because getting on that journey of writing a book and getting on the journey of publishing it, for some people it's easier than others, isn't it? And for some of us, you take a little bit longer. And so let's start with Sam. What would be your 3 top tips, or the things that you would recommend people do to stay confident on the book publishing journey? Because we're going to get Karen to sort of talk about the writing part of it, but I know you help a little bit with both sides of that. But to get published, what are the sort of tips would you say about staying confident with that?
I think the biggest tip that I can offer is to don't be afraid to admit that you don't know what you don't know. There is so much conflicting information online as to the best ways to go about publishing, traditionally publishing, self-publishing, hybrid publishing. Then there is an absolute overwhelm of information out there, and it's really, really easy to get bogged down in, well, this website says I have to do this, that website says I have to do the complete opposite, which is right, and you just get completely stuck, and you either don't end up publishing your book, or you just kind of muddle your way through just picking things at random. So I think the biggest support that you can get is get somebody who knows the process, has done it before, to either talk you through what the process is, or get a self-publishing consultant to actually help you through it. Many are available, not just
yes. And and the stress-free publishing book you can see in the background. Me being a don't like the detail person, I've looked at Sam's book. I have no intention of actually going through it, because I know the kind of help I need is that I'll just get her to do it for me, because you need to know. I suppose it's so detailed and it's so accurate and it's so supportive and helpful. If I really didn't have the money and I had to do it myself, I know I could go through your book and do it. But I would rather work 10 times harder to earn the money than have to sit down and try and work out how to do that. And that is about a decision. So we know that Sam's got her book, and we'll make sure we get a link to that in the bottom chat. So just come to Karen. And then if you think of anything else, Sam, that you want to add in there about sort of confidence in publishing, things that have come up, come back to us. So Karen, what would be your sort of first tip then in terms of getting yourself writing and getting getting to that point where you've got your first manuscript ready for somebody to read it? Because that's probably the pinnacle point, isn't it, when you let it go to somebody and let them have a look at it?
Well, there's a few tips I could share, but the first thing is to have a plan. To have a plan through the whole process. So the biggest mistake that anyone could make is actually just open a blank Word document and start writing, because that's when you're going to get stuck. That's when you're going to lose confidence. That's when you're going to go round in circles. That's when you're going to start and never finish your book. For me, having a really good plan right at the very beginning and knowing exactly what you're writing, who it's for, what the process you're writing, the chapter outline, for me, that's the very first start, because that will help you to build your confidence. When you start to look at what you know and the value and the expertise and the stories and the experiences you've gone through, that's where confidence will start to blossom. Yes, I also agree with Sam in as much as, getting support is key as well, because you don't know what you don't know. There are so many different areas to planning a book, writing a book, publishing a book, launching a book, marketing a book. And actually, being able to be handheld through the whole process will make it so much easier. As you said, Cheryl, you'd much prefer to earn the money to invest in other people to support you rather than have to learn all of that yourself. And I totally agree with that, because it's a bit like me, I don't want to do everything myself. I'd much prefer to employ experts to do it, who can do it far quicker and far better than me, rather than try and struggle through by myself. Then the third thing is really having cheerleaders. We've touched on this already, having cheerleaders who can help you. So whether it's a family member, whether it's a coach, whether it's a mentor, whether it's a business partner, whatever it is, having cheerleaders and people to keep you going, keep you accountable. So accountability is quite important when it comes to writing. Otherwise, you'll never get to see Sam and see her smiley face helping you to get your book published. So there's a lot I could share here.
Yeah, and can I just add in from my experience, because I remember seeing both of you, because these two are planners, and I do planning, but my plan's in my head, and I've realised what everybody else calls planning, what I call planning is really dreaming in everybody else's world. I've realised that I'm very organised, and once I made a decision, I get on and do things, and I quite often, but that doesn't work for book writing. And it doesn't work if you've got to delegate it. So I've had to learn how to get those plans and visions from my head onto pieces of paper. And I'm always blown away when I see your guys' plans. So it's like, I'm writing this book. I don't really go like that when I read them. Honestly, I don't. But when you go, when you said you just published your last few of it, and here's the chapters for the next one, I'm like, how does she do that? It's like... But I will say to you, if you haven't, talked to these guys, because if you see how their brain works and you see how they lay things out, you get access to what you don't know that you don't know, and it gives you those ideas. It's like, oh, that's how and it's like, I see the chapter headings and think, oh, I really want to read the book before I've even read it. I look at my chapter headings, which is part of the reason why, guys, I'm stuck. Yes, I'm managing my critic and I've got to sort it out. I'll be fine. But I look at my chapter and I think, oh, they're so boring. There's no sort of like teaser factor in it, because I've literally I'm just writing about my process that I teach my clients. So it's just interesting listening to you guys and reminding myself about the importance of planning. But it's reminded me that if you can see, not just hear what other people are doing, because we've talked about it, but when you can actually see it. So I don't know if you have got them, but I would say to you, please write a blog with an example of a plan, both of you, because we could put that in the YouTube channel as well, because it was only when you talked about it that I remembered when I saw your visual plans. I was like, oh, that's what they mean. I get it now.
I do have one written.
Yeah, because it's great when people can see how it might be structured. And I've seen it in the author's journey when people have shared what their chapters are, where they're starting with and what's happening with it. And I just want to finish with anybody that's doing anything in these lives. It's great when you listen to other people, you listen to experts. You touched on it before, Sam, when you look online and you see all the different options. Sometimes your starting point for confidence with these sort of things is thinking about when you write at your best, that's like what? And you have to find your style. And then you can, if you're just pinching from other people and you have no idea of how you do it, you've got nothing to build on. So I know that for me, what I've realised is that when I've got to write my best, especially a book, I do have to do a whole load of downloading. I have to do that writing. It's almost a therapeutic, cathartic bit where I have to get all the rubbish out of the way, and then I can do the structury part of it. And that's, I know it'll take me longer because I'm doing it that way, but that is my way. And it's a bit like you said at the very beginning, it's then you just have to go, well, that's just me being me. This is me doing me. I would love to be like you guys. Knock out a book in 9 months, all done, sorted. But hey, I'm not like that. Although I know how I can be like that. I know that if I just interviewed people and wrote their stories up instead of writing mine, my books would be published very quickly. So guess what the book number 3 is going to be like? It is going to be a whole load of interviews and case studies and taking the research from others. So is there anything else you'd like to add just for the viewers today in terms of confidence, book writing and publishing before we log off this episode today?
Yeah, one of the other things that I thought that can really help with confidence when it comes to publishing is getting your audience involved and early on in the process. So, even as early as helping them to, or using them to help you figure out what your title should be, or giving them, suggestions of, okay, these are the covers that I'm considering. What do you like best? That's going to give you the confidence that your audience is actually interested in what you're doing, so therefore you're not wasting your time. But also, if that feedback that you get from them is really positive and they're saying, oh, this is brilliant, can't wait till it's out, let me know as soon as it's ready, I'll buy it. Even if people go to the extent of giving you money before the book's even finished. You know, I've had a couple of authors that have experienced that, and it's a case of, right, well, you know, they're you know, gunning for this book on already. It's brilliant. That gives you the confidence to say, okay, I'm not wasting my time. This is worthwhile. I've got people waiting for it. I therefore have to make them happy. Let's just get on and do it. And it's a feeling when people in your audience who are important to you say, we love what you're doing, we want to see more, can't wait till the book's out.
Yeah. I've got 12 that have bought it, keep asking me when it's going to come out, so there's no way I can't not to finish it, so it will happen. Is there anything else, Karen, you'd like to add before we finish off today?
Yeah, I totally concur with what Sam's saying. I call it self-validation, and it's a really great way of funding your book as you write it as well. So if you're looking to invest in book mentoring, you're looking to invest in book publishing, when you can generate income as you write your book, that is a key thing to do. So, you know, very, very similar to Sam, with my clients, I advise them to do some market research or to do interviews or to involve other people in the process as they write it, rather than wait until their book is launched. You know, I've had so many conversations with people who have got to the end point, and I say, how many people have you told about your book? And they say, well, I've told my friends and family, or, you know, they've told a few people. But it's so important to build your community. It's so important to get that feedback. It's as Sam said, you know, when you've got people waving money at you and saying, I want to read your book now, that is the motivation that you need to get on and do it. So yeah, I would just concur with that. Really, is just talk about it now, get feedback, make sure you're writing the right book before you go too far down the line, and get support on the journey. I have got something coming out soon that neither of you know about, actually, which will help people. So I might give you a little bit of snippet later on. Secret project I'll be working on.
Fantastic. So that brings us to the conclusion of today's episode. So thank you very much, Sam and Karen. All the links to everything we've talked about will be below on YouTube. Please get in touch with these ladies if you want to know more about book writing. And of course, if you're at that point where you're really struggling to ask for help and you don't even have the confidence to ask for help, then get in touch with me, because I'd be more than happy to listen to you and help you work out what's your first or your next best step, just to get you from that bind so that you know actually who to go to and where to go with your problems or decisions. So fantastic. Thanks for joining us today. See you soon.